programmed to destroy those life forms which are imperfect. Non-sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Welcome to my first Sci-Fi Saturday episode. A peek into nerd culture. What works and what doesn't. And what the fans really want. In our first episode, we look at the announcement that holds cautious optimism for the intellectual property of Stargate, whose absence from new productions during the ongoing failed cultural Marxist infiltration of American entertainment may have been a blessing in disguise.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
It's much better. Now that we actually have some sound at the beginning, you can actually hear what I'm saying. Thank you all if you're still here watching this episode, the very first one with all the bugs and everything. See if we can do a good transition here. There we go. Welcome to Sci-Fi Saturdays, my first screwed up episode of science fiction, where we will touch on the exciting news of Stargate's return. First, who am I and why should my opinion matter? Well, I was born in 1964. The original series, which I watched on a 24-inch black and white TV, put me on the path to consuming anything and everything science fiction I can get my hands on. I have some sound on. Yes, I do. Excellent. Now, anything I get my hands on meant going to the library. Went to the library, reading some comics, reading some magazines, and of course, the mainstay of niche reporting on everything sci-fi at the time in the industry was very limited presence in the arts section of print media on weekend Saturday papers. So you're lucky you could find anything there about sci-fi, unless, of course, it was a movie coming out, maybe a book review, but that was about it. Within the literary world, various anthological publications built around the various writers, associations, foundations, and academies had created their own Hugo Nebula Awards, which before the age of the internet was pretty well the algorithm of trying to find out what was new in sci-fi. So you go to the bookstores, you go to the magazine racks, and you're looking, hey, look, here's a Hugo Award-winning, or here's a Nebula Award-winning author. Maybe we should look into them. That was pretty well the algorithm at the time. And that algorithm, of course, was the magazine stand, the bookstores, the science fiction section. And where was I? Sorry, I had a noise there on the side. Again, pitfalls of doing this live. So, combing through the used bookstores for all those prior publications of the same authors, sometimes you're discovering new authors. Those were the algorithms of the time. No algorithms then, really, but that's how pretty well people got to find out. Unless, of course, you had an interest like myself and you would be reading magazines about sci-fi or books that would have a whole bunch of new authors for you to explore. Well, as a child, I was visually stimulated by the alien environment of Star Trek, not because it was different, but because it was a story that even I, as a young age, could understand the basics of. In the last year of Star Trek, the original series, I was 5, going on 6, watching this with my father, and the visual manifestation of science fiction that I could see there. I could see a man with pointy ears, and there was something sci-fi, and they had some weapons, and yes, it was all very interesting. As a young child, not really understanding the entire aspect of the story, but I could see that they were friends and they were getting along and they cared about each other. Every story was like a tiny little journey. But sometimes these special effects overshadow, which is why I discovered during first time watching this little Spaceballs things that I was throwing in here as part of the show, really exemplifies the well, how ridiculous it can be when you're looking at kit bashing, which is what really occurred. Let's change the camera here. It's what really occurred. Um, a lot of science fiction shows after Star Wars. I mean, they John Dykstra and his team had pretty well established the fact. Let's buy a whole bunch of kits of different whatever they could find, whether it was naval ships or whatever, and they just put together their ships. That whole scene that they filmed across the trench in the Star Wars movie, all these little kits that they built together, slowly moving the camera forward. Well, then over time, of course, more movies started coming out and duplicating the kit bashing. And then it started to get pretty ridiculous. And of course, love Mel Brooks for this, doing almost a 2-minute long intro of this massive kit bashing. Anyways, let's get back to our. Thanks, Mel. There we go. Now, John Dykstra, who was responsible for a lot of the special effects explosion that happened within science fiction over the years, the equipment that he pioneered that ended up using computers synced up with cameras. I remember at the time, computers in 1970s, well, they weren't what they are today, that's for sure. In fact, Arthur C. Clarke had a prediction in the same year that Star Wars come out about uh, when we would be using the internet.
I brought along my son Jonathan, who in the year 2001 will be the same age as I am now. Maybe he will be better adjusted to this kind of world that you're trying to portray.
Sorry,
The big
74,
difference
77.
when he grows up, in fact, if we wanted to wait for the year 2001, is that he will have in his own house, not a computer as big as this, but at least a console through which he can talk to his friendly local computer and get all the information he needs for his everyday life, like his bank statements, his theater reservations, all the information you need in the course of living in a complex modern society. This will be in a compact form in his own house. He'll have a television screen like these here and a keyboard, and he'll talk to the computer, get information from it, and he'll take it as much for granted as we take the telephone.
I wonder though, what sort of a life would it be like in social terms? I mean, if our whole life is built around the computer, do we become a computer-dependent society and computer-independent individuals?
In some ways, but they'll also enrich our society because it'll make it possible for us to live really anywhere we like. Any businessman, any executive could live almost anywhere on Earth and still do his business through a device like this. And this is a wonderful thing. It means we want to be stuck in cities, we better live out in the country or wherever we please, and still carry on complete interaction with human beings as well as with other computers.
How prescient he was. Now, of course, today, AI can reproduce almost anything in CGI. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. I am not having fun with my cameras. There we go. Now, AI reproducing anything with CGI is a double-edged sword. Uh, it's great that they will be able to bring almost any book alive. And there's a few books I would love to see alive. I'm sure everyone who's a sci-fi nerd like I am has a series of books that they've read that they have on their shelf that maybe they revisit every couple of years that they pull out and they reread. I know I have a couple of series I like to do that every year. Although the last couple of years I've been so busy I haven't reread them, and I kind of miss that. And of course, nowadays, how many people actually read books anymore? They're just listening to them all the time. They're not actually using their own Mark II eyeballs to interpret the scriptures on the paper, if they're even using paper books anymore. But without a journey for the audience when it comes to enjoying sci-fi, without the journey there for the audience to enjoy or want to be part of, every time they watch or listen or read a story, that idea will lose the repeat audience because they've never been emotionally invested into it. True sci-fi nerds, when we were growing up in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, and we were just starving for sci-fi, anything sci-fi, because there's very few and far between that came out, unless, of course, it was going to be a new book or a new movie. We didn't have any of that. We were starving. We were looking for anything and everything. So if a good story came along, we would hang on to that. And if there was only a good story that we had in the past, well, we hung on to that too. How many times that some of us that were tweens or teenagers in the 1970s coming home from school and watching Star Trek, the original series, rebroadcast, and how much we enjoyed it. Later on, it was only available on Sunday mornings in some areas, and we would just stay home and watch that Sunday mornings because that's the only time we could grab onto because there was nothing else. Unless, of course, you had cable, but even then you were still limited. So, for myself, after engaging in 4 decades long military career, I have an idea of what emotional investment is. And in those decades, I've watched the world of sci fi get infected with a familiar ideological parasite that I've seen in the rest of the world. One that originated in Vladimir Ilyich Lenin's oeuvre, his prolific works uh, that Marxists revisit and rework for their never ending struggle of authoritarian control. And did I actually? Oh, yes, yes, I did. Let's have a look at that. It's a quick view here. Is it going to work? Nope. There we go. Playing in the background. Just something I'd put together for another thing on a completely unrelated story than sci-fi. But as you can see, as it's playing in the background here, Lenin was prolific. And I'm just going to scroll right through here quickly as it's playing in the background. And this library just a massive amount of, of, of well of when Marxists go back to the well for the same ideas that I come back with all the time. But in this case here, they have been repackaging it with their cultural Marxism to slowly destroy civilization from within. And in some cases, they have been doing this by attacking the intellectual properties that they know infects the minds of young people. And when it affects the minds of young people, they take those ideas with them for the rest of their lives, like I did. The aspects of science fiction not only introduced me to the scientific method, but also introduced me to the fact that not everything everybody tells you is the truth, and to allow yourself to think for yourself and why that is important. Now, of course, in history, I paid attention in history class because history is another one of my favorite subjects. But I found some parallels between what was happening in history and in many of the stories that were being written in science fiction, in many cases to warn us of possible futures. Orwell's 1984, maybe not a science fiction story in itself, but it did predict a very dark future that we're almost experiencing today in many ways because some of the tactics that he warned us about are being used by our governments against us. So these Marxists rework for their never ending struggle, the authoritarian control that they need over the rest of us. So what they've been doing is that they have been damaging these IPs around us, these intellectual properties. The problem with controlling intellectual properties or the platforms that have these IPs is that as soon as they engage in such behavior, they betray the social construct and the social contract that created and made these IPs popular. In often cases, they hijack an IP to try to manipulate the existing audience, and then bring in their very limited existing audience that follows their ideological path in order to build upon that ideology and spread it. But what they don't realize is that the thing that made those ideas attractive in the first place was the fact that it didn't have that restrictive ideology in it, and that it was a freedom of thought experiment. Cultural Marxism is, by its very nature, against freedom of thought. So it cannot work and cannot make science fiction IPs popular or make them successful. I think that's been proven over and over again. Now, you can't tell people what to think in the world of science fiction, where the genre takes you to the limit over every imaginable societal construct. There, science fiction allows you to have so many different ideas and explore them in ways that would be verboten if you allowed cultural Marxists to tell you what you're allowed to talk about and what you're not. Let's say gender ideology for once. Imagine a planet of hermaphrodites, and each of these hermaphrodites reproduce themselves because that's how they've genetically evolved as humanity spread through the galaxies. And on this particular planet, it's a planet of hermaphrodites. But in this society, since each of them reproduce themselves, they're very selfish, narcissistic, ideological society, and they're constantly at war with each other. In fact, they're so much at war with each other that their offspring naturally always want to kill their parents because they too need to control everything because that's what they've been born into. Imagine a society like that. But you cannot imagine or discuss a society like that if you're held and bound by the ideological construct of cultural Marxism that says you cannot discuss gender ideology because it has to be specific and set in these ways, and you have to believe those certain things. And if you discuss anything outside of that, well, then you're a bigot or a racist or an oppressor, and there has to be a victim. Maybe this is why the return of Stargate at this time is important. A series that filled the sci-fi Friends on a Journey niche. Well, maybe not so much with Stargate Universe. But again, it was an artistic vision in the same universe, Stargate Universe, that is, that didn't stray from the intellectual property in the same way that Star Trek Discovery uh, and almost all the other following Kurtzman's Trek did, like show tunes on Strange New Worlds. Really? Show tunes? My God, man. What were you thinking? With the end of Stargate Universe in 2011, the franchise may have been spared the intellectual property destruction currently being promulgated by cultural Marxism in Star Wars and Star Trek. So I think the fact that I got canceled at that time and then stayed out of the media may have bloody saved it, may have saved that property from the infection that those other properties got, just as we saw in Star Wars and Star Trek. In 2018, the web series Stargate Origins, along with a strong and active fan base, proved that Stargate, whose primary 3 live action shows and having 3 movies and 368 episodes, was still a marketable IP with fans who keep it alive with the pure love of it. And if anyone has not seen Stargate Origins, they're on Netflix. You've probably seen it. It was available online before that. The fact that the fans got together and produced a show is amazing. Let's get our camera out of the way.
You should smile, Catherine Langford.
You are just like your mother.
From now on, I'm in charge.
Yes. So now, apparently, Amazon Prime, having control over MGM and its ownership of the IP, seem to have recognized the strength of a fan-driven IP, and seemingly have made a big show of engaging the people who have kept Stargate and fandom alive with a promise to stay true to the existing established timeline. Something massively important that most studios or production companies never seem to understand. Never seem to understand. There we go.
Working.
I am programmed to destroy those life forms.
There we go. Now, opting for all the self-indulgent opportunities, often whenever they do a reboot, is what has destroyed a lot of series whenever they've tried to redo them. There's been some exceptions. Battlestar Galactica reboot that Bear was involved in took a completely different approach, created that grittiness I think that they tried to reproduce in Stargate Universe. But it was a great reimagining of the series. And I believe that that time too, Hatch tried to reboot the series many times as a continuation. He really did for many years, and the fact that he was involved in the project, um, the last Battlestar Galactica project, that was really great to see him in that as well. But in those cases there, in those intellectual properties, it was really a limited scenario that they had. In fact, I think the expansion that they did with the reboot was actually good. But when you have a property like Stargate that has been around for so long, that has a massive universe already created, I think their approach here is making sense, making a lot of sense. Now, will the showrunners adhere to the established storylines? Well, apparently they say so. Will the Stargate universe ending be resolved? If anyone has been trying to find out how that resolution could happen, I've read a few stories online, some draft scripts, and I think there's a very easy way. And that's the beauty of science fiction, is that the unimaginable can always be imagined if you have a decent team of writers and a good showrunner to ensure that the writers actually do something good. Of course, you need good directors, good editors, but if the project isn't there, if the love for the project isn't there, if the showrunners don't ensure that the project maintains the same sturdiness that it's always had towards its fan base, it's not going to survive. So, what do we know what do we know? What we do know is that since 2011, uh, diversity, equity, and inclusion has run its feverish disease through every level of education, government, industry, and in many cases still lingers until they too realize this expensive and exclusionary parasite of permanent oppressor victim ideology based on bigotry of lowered expectations uh, needs to be gotten rid of. Right, so it looks like Hollywood has finally realized this, so they're purging their documents, their documents. They're purging their departments. Other places as well. They've realized, oh yeah, well, it was a nice little experiment, but turns out it's a bit of a grift, isn't it? Paying all these departments to make everyone miserable and scared to say anything at work. I'm sure that worked out pretty well, hasn't it? Not running scores completely, but I think in entertainment, it's what is it? Borders, language, and culture is really what your country is made of, and science fiction is part of Western culture. So that may save Stargate from the mandatory rainbow alphabet cavalcade of mandatory ideological representation, having been absent all these years while DEI ran its way through. Because after all, the Wraith don't care what gender their food is. But they don't pay the writers or control the editing. I mean, the Wraith as fictional characters, right? So who knows? Who knows what they could do with a script? Now, I have purposefully not watched any other reactions or predictions other than the two videos in today's stream, which we'll be getting to in a second here. So let's watch the announcements that they did about Stargate. Have a few comments along the way, and then we'll listen to John Delaraz's comments, which I. So it's really, there's only two videos. I've been wanting to watch everyone else's reaction, which I'm going to be doing after this in the can. And yeah, so let's get on with the rest of the show. There we go.
Working.
You guys ready?
Yeah, okay, great. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Welcome, everyone. We have big Stargate news to talk about today. My name is Darren Sumner. I've been covering the franchise for more than 25 years over at the fan site gateworld.net.
And my name is David Reed. I run Dial the Gates, which is a cast and crew interview archive on YouTube.
This is so exciting. This has been a very hard secret to keep for the last 18 months, but we can announce today that a brand new Stargate series is coming to Prime Video.
What?
Brad, this shouldn't be news to you.
Oh, right. It isn't, but it is great news.
Still just hearing it is like, oh my God, they're doing it.
It's so rare for the original creators to get to work on the new version of a show. It's just incredible that, you know, Amazon MGM Studios and Prime Video have come together and not gone in a totally new direction, that they have respected what we have all created. And when I say we all, I don't just mean like Brad, Joe, I mean like all of the cast and crew, all of the writers, and to a large extent the fandom have created, and we're honoring that in this new version. So for us, we wanted to come here and make the announcement today with you guys because it was our way of just saying, like, thank you for keeping the lights on.
I'm kind of just blown away that I'm in this room with these extraordinary people along with Darren here. And I've got to ask, why us? You could have asked anybody to be a part of this group.
Well, you guys have been keeping it going. You were such a huge part of the show. It's pre-social media, you know? So Gate World was the place where people would convene where they wanted to talk about the show. Much of the fan community grew out of Gate World. And in the 14 years that the show has been off the air, you know, it's not just you guys, but an incredible fandom of like podcasters and cosplayers and convention goers that have kept the demand for Stargate alive. The endless rewatches, like that has helped. It has helped beyond, I can't even explain to you how much that has helped.
When I first joined the franchise, SG1's fourth season, one of the first things I did was get on social media and I started to interact with the fans. And little did I realize that I would be interacting with them for like 25 years. And I can tell you that in that 25-year span, their enthusiasm for Stargate has never waned. I mean, hardly a day ever went by when they, you know, someone would ask me, you know, when is new Stargate coming out? When are we going to get a new Stargate? And just, you know, the opportunity to finally tell them Stargate is coming is incredible.
Well, I got to say thanks to you, Joe. You've been, as much as we've been doing over the last 14, 15 years, you've also been a tireless advocate supporting fans and keeping some hope alive. And it's not just for us, fans who grew up on the original shows. Maybe some of us watched it with our parents or with our kids. But now in those 14 years, there's a whole new crop of fans who have discovered the show on streaming or other places. We have a million questions. Let me ask, though, the one question that I think so many fans are asking and have been kind of worried about as Stargate has moved from one shelf to the other over the years. Is this going to be a reboot?
It is not a reboot. It is not a reboot. It is a brand new chapter. It's its own unique chapter in the Stargate universe. So for us, it's incredibly important that obviously everyone watching this Zoom, everyone that's like getting excited about this announcement will love the show.
Now, again, I haven't I haven't listened to any of the other reactions by any of the other fans out there, the other channel creators regarding Stargate and what they think is coming and what this story is going to be. Again, many of us would like to see the Stargate universe situation wrapped up with Destiny to find out what happened to those characters. But when they say it's another chapter in the same universe, my God, well, we know that, I mean, if they're going to stay within Stargate Command, then obviously it's going to have to be a team from Earth, something from Earth. right? Whether they're from Earth and then just operating from a different planet, or are they going to be bringing in a completely different uh, human colony from a parallel society from somewhere else, and then bring them into the fold? But of course, there's the mirror universe situation that they create in Star Trek as well. Sorry, Star Trek, Stargate as well. There's the that actual mirror that lets them go into different realities. Not a mirror universe. Mirror universe was actually Star Trek. But yes, and that's the possibilities of science fiction. It can open up so many doors. But they're not giving us too many clues. But at least they are saying the most important thing is, which is that it isn't not a reboot.
But, the amazing thing about Prime Video is like it airs everywhere, all around the world. And so for us, it's really important to not only have it so that the fans feel like this is my Stargate, this is the Stargate I've been waiting 14 years for, but that a brand new audience can come in without having to have watched 350 episodes of an amazing show, that they can start with episode 1 of the new Stargate show. And then if they love it, then they can go back and watch everything else.
It's just extraordinary that finally a show that's been designed for a global audience will be able to be seen simultaneously by a global audience. And you have no idea how excited that makes so many of us out here who didn't get to share it all at the same time when it aired. So the next question I want to know is, are we going to see any familiar faces?
Listen, for another time, most of the world is finding out at the same time as all of these fans. So just give us a beat, but more to come.
Another thing that I'm really excited about with this new show is that we're going to be able to do things that we could not do in 1997 and even beyond that.
So it's important to note that when Stargate got off the air, when Stargate SG-1 finished, it was 2007 when it did its 11 years. Stargate Atlantis ran till 2009. Stargate Universe ran till 2011. Now we look today at today's current streaming media. Netflix went streaming in 2010, but really didn't go into global streaming, I believe, was it 2013? Just bringing up my figures here. Of course, they're low file. Sorry about that. That's the problem with a live show. Come on, give me the figures. Not coming up. I just had them. Computer does not like me. 2010, back then, up until that point, if you wanted to use Netflix, they were still doing a DVD rental through the mail. That was awesome. That was pretty well how we caught up on a lot of TV series. It was just doing Netflix. Once they started streaming, it worked out awesome. And that's the thing, is that when Stargate finished, streaming was just starting. So when he's talking about a global audience, oh yeah, now after all these years of streaming Stargate properly, it's going to be the real global audience. I'm also interested to find out how many episodes they're going to be making. Old TV, right? 26 episodes a year. That's how you get into being able to make 3 seasons, and then you have enough episodes so you can go into syndication. But if you look at a lot of the streaming shows today, they're not making 26 episodes a year. Wow, they're barely making 8. It's like they've adopted the UK model of making next to fuck all. Maybe it's not a good pattern, really. And it was a hard slog. You're in there doing your weekly production from the crews and the writing and the production team and putting it all together and the editing. It's a massive industry. But now with streaming is that they don't have to stick to that TV schedule anymore. So they don't have to create episodes that are centered around commercial either. It would be interesting to see how they're going to approach this global audience.
We're going to be able to do almost anything in terms of visual effects and everything our imagination can come up with now. I won't be the guy in the office saying no to, because we can do stuff now.
I've said on stage at GateCon that Stargate matters. It matters to us. It's not just a show. This is a franchise. This is a world that has brought people together. It's helped people connect with their family, and it's helped us to make new friendships, including with you guys. So the fact that we get more of it is just a joy.
So of course we're making the show for the fans, of course, but we're also making it for people that have never watched Stargate and potentially don't have a sci-fi franchise they even like. I think what's amazing about the Stargate construction is that it takes place today. It takes place on Earth, the Earth that you recognize. But yet this gateway to the stars allows us to tell these amazing stories with epic scope, incredible sense of humor, and again, like a sense of presence in the real world. I think, you know, my wife is not a huge sci-fi fan, and a lot of that is because, like, she's like, what's this got to do with me? And I think what's great about that is, like, Stargate tears down those barriers. This is a show for everyone, everywhere.
But I will say this, a lot of speculation about what people want the show to be and what they
Sorry, folks. It
strongly
seems
feel
my
they will watch
computer's
Stargate.
having a little glitch here.
And I'd first take to share the excitement. It's going to, and also be in touch from us. We're not going to go away. Together, we'll be talking regularly.
Has been a group always been there and not cut them out of the process. And I'm just so thankful that we don't have to wait another 14 years. You guys take as long as you need. We will be there.
Thank you for bringing this straight to the fans. Thank you for the Stargate that you've made in the past. And I think I can speak for fandom. Thank you for Stargate in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We'll talk soon.
Does Stargate...
All right, before John gets into this here, John Delaraz, he's got his own channel. I suggest you tune into his own channel and subscribe. John is his own man. He publishes his own stuff. He's a recognized author, and the crap he has gone through because of the cultural Marxist infiltration within the industry that he operates in is rather interesting. If you should listen to some of his other videos, but his interpretation here and how he ended up approaching Stargate is not very much different than my own. So let's listen to what he says.
Stargate hold up. I was wondering this as they announced a new Stargate series this week, and they're bringing back a lot of the original SG-1 writers, which made me very, very excited. I was a huge SG-1 fan when it was on the air. I actually came in about season 5, season 6, because I've always been a Trekkie is kind of my main thing. And I heard it was very much in the ethos of The Next Generation in the way that it was conducted. A little more humorous, a little more military-esque, and of course they don't have that whole stupid Prime Directive thing, which, you know, kind of makes it superior to Star Trek in a lot of ways. But I was hesitant because I was like, okay, they made a Stargate movie. I liked that movie. I was actually 11 years old when it came out. And and I watched it, I think, right as it came to home video, because I think my parents watched it, and it scared the bejesus out of me when I was 11 years old. I was like having nightmares about it because of like I'm worried these like ancient Egyptians are going to come like you know, invade me, or I don't know what I was thinking. I was 11, but when I saw that Stargate SG-1 had a whatchamacallit, was on the air, I was kind of like, why would I want to watch a thing where the two principal characters of a movie were replaced by different actors? Like, that doesn't feel good, and how are they even gonna... I mean, the movie was pretty open and shut and done. Like, what's the point? So I didn't watch it until, I think, season 4, 5, or 6, somewhere in there. And I got in, and I caught up with like that Netflix DVDs at the time. You remember the Netflix DVDs? And I caught up really quickly and was just hooked. And I watched it from that point forward, on the air, and absolutely loved it. And I was pretty happy. I was a big Farscape fan at the time too, so I was even happy in seasons 9 and 10 when Ben Browder and Claudia Black actually came in.
Yeah, so very similarly, I remember seeing Stargate SG-1 um, on the video rack at the video store because they had put it straight to video after they had broadcast it, obviously to bring in more audience. And I remember seeing it and going, "Oh, look, somebody went and redid the SG-1 movie into a series. Oh, look, they got that guy Richard Dean Anderson on it." Of course, I wasn't really a Richard Dean Anderson fan at the time. I didn't care to watch the other show that he was on, and of course, always being a sci-fi nerd and a sci-fi nut, you're really occupying your time, kind of record and watch other sci-fi back then that you could record on your VCR because we didn't have any digital recording, we didn't have any streaming, and like John mentioned there, catching up on a series by doing mail order Netflix DVDs was the way to go. And in the very same sense, because I'd seen that video and I seen the cover and I was like, oh yeah, they just redid a movie kind of thing. And it wasn't until I think into season 2 or maybe the beginning of season 3 that I actually did start watching a few episodes, and then I realized, hey, you know what? This isn't bad. Oh, the script writing is kind of interesting. And then the more I started watching, I goes, you know what? They're actually making an effort to make this their own series and continue on with the characters. I was impressed. And it quickly became the replacement for what I had enjoyed and what I had felt when it came to Star Trek, the original series. Remember, so I was one of those people when Star Trek Next Generation came out. I was part of that generation that said, "Oh, it'll never be as good as the original series," and we were making that comparison. And of course, over time, well, then we were so happy we had any kind of sci-fi, even if it was Next Generation in its current little bit of a pablum style. But they still explored some stories. But again, it was that comfort. The comfort, just not the complete comfort, because it wasn't the same characters as the original series. But when it came to Stargate, they did something completely different, and then they continued the same story. And then it didn't matter what characters they brought in, because they took the same care in the storyline. You became emotionally invested in those new characters, even though they might only be there for a couple of episodes or they come back into the episodes. Feel good story all the time. Let's go back to John.
To the show because I was like, wow, it's like a Farscape reunion. This is cool. So it didn't have creative complications. It was a very straightforward movie. I liked Daniel Jackson. I liked O'Neill, and that's what mattered, right? and I wanted the bad guys to lose. And I looked at it and I'm like, this is beautiful in its simplicity, actually. And the effects were pretty good. This is 1994, so as I look at it now, the CGI is not, what it is with modern stuff, of course. But CGI is over-rendered now. These battles that they do now don't look like they could really happen whatsoever. It's a disaster. I honestly like the simplicity of the battles. I like the simplicity of the plot. It was straightforward. It's very action-packed the entire way. And so I thought, honestly, I looked at this and I go, honestly, I watched this again, and it's a perfect movie. You could say that it's a little shallow and it should be more to it. And well, guess what? You have SG-1 to really flesh out these characters and really develop the world and change things on this, right? So looking back on it, this worked very, very well. Very interesting. That's it. As an action-packed science fiction roller coaster ride, it's fabulous fun. And I noticed something about this. As the military shipped out, our two buddy cop, protagonists, which is what it is, buddy. Again, these are all just tropes that are very, very obvious. Are white males who are just, they're both, upset, with their lot in life, and they have a lot to prove, and they are at odds with each other. And at the same time, they grow to respect each other because they're O'Neill's a very competent military man, and Jackson is a very competent scientist and archaeologist, right? And so, and because of the competence, it's refreshing just to watch those two characters do that, and not have a strong female black lesbian lead in a wheelchair and come lecture them and be better than them at everything like every modern sci-fi has.
Ain't that the truth? And that's pretty well the nub of it. This is what's happened to a lot of science fiction, is the ideological incursion of whatever it is they're trying to do to society to try to control you is being basically put into all the storylines. And it's not just science fiction, it's everything else, the romantic comedies, the dramas, stage plays, they just will not stop. But of course, the only thing that seems to be stopping them is the fact that nobody's consuming their product. Has been shown in the movie theaters, when you put out crap, nobody goes to see the crap. And as it turns out, cultural Marxism has no culture other than Marxism. So that pretty well concludes our review of Stargate is back. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a comfort zone that people want to just re-experience. For the same reason that they rewatch the same TV shows that they love. They're putting those DVDs back in their DVD player, or whether they pick up the same books to reread the same stories over and over again to give them that sense of comfort. And that's what Stargate gave a lot of people, that sense of comfort because of the care that went into the creation of the stories and for the care that the actors and the production team put into it to give that final product, that final little artistic view that all of us appreciate. So let's finish the rest of this, and we'll see you next week with episode 2, where we will be covering a few other things sci-fi, along with the main topic of how, in some cases, science fiction continues to be supported and promulgated online by people who are doing reaction videos. And I'm going to be covering one of those reaction teams because I think they do an outstanding job, especially when it comes to people wanting to revisit that thing that is that comfort. It's one thing that I've found is that, every once in a while I would like to rewatch maybe some Star Trek just to re-feel that. But it's hard to do when you're on your own. But when you're watching other people who are watching it for the first time, it gives you an opportunity to relive that with them. That's what we'll be covering next week. Till then, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Working.
I am programmed to destroy those life forms which are imperfect. Non sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated.
Program complete. Enter when ready. Warning. Inertial damping field is unstable.
Oh.